It's live streamed on our Facebook channel.
I'm delighted. I've had such a good time so far.
Is it live streamed now? It is.
Actually, it is Facebook Live, so I don't know.
Yeah, I gotta get back.
Welcome, everybody.
My daughter's a basketball
Welcome to our open mic night. Nice to see a nice full room this evening. There you go.
Yeah, I was drinking some water.
Okay, all right. So I'm Jonathan Haupt, Executive Director of the Conroy Center. You probably already know that, but I'm not actually hosting this evening. I've been demoted to co-host. I'll be turning the running of the show over to our returning champion and by far the most famous person in the room, Millie Bennett.
Which I don't think is the definition of co-hosting. I'm doing the rest of the work.
I didn't say it would be an equal partnership.
I feel like I was misled.
You can do it, Millie.
I
You-
don't know.
Yes. All right.
Okay.
Okay, we've reached agreement. So, I'm going to read you the entire lineup so you know what our total order of the evening is, and I'm delighted to say we have a very full lineup. That is fantastic. So this is the order you all will be reading in. Catherine, you will be first. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Luke will be second. Justin, where's Justin? Hi, Justin. You'll be third. Tim Conroy, front row, is fourth. Joe Graham. Joe is here somewhere. Right? Joe, back corner. Fifth. Peggy Bart in her open mic debut.
Thanks, Jonathan.
Yes. Lillian Ladd, you will be right after Peggy, number 7. Millie has decided to grace us by reading her own work this evening as well. And then she is going to introduce our featured presenter. We're very excited to welcome in her first ever appearance in Beaufort, not just in our Conroy Center, but in Beaufort. So we're very excited to have Emily Rosko with us this evening. All right. Does anybody want to read whose name I did not read just now? Anybody not on the list who would very much like to be on the list? Okay, that's our list. That's our plan. Emily, who are we going to sort?
What did you just call me?
I called you Emily.
I don't like that. I really don't like that.
I was pointing out you have a secret identity.
Oh, you're turning into Evelyn now. All right. If Catherine Tandy Brown would like to come up to the stage, please.
Oops. As soon as she finds her glasses.
Okay. You have to fill for a while.
I have to fill for a while.
Ad lib.
Ad lib.
Ad lib. Here we go.
Oh, I don't know how to do that.
That's so
Yeah, this is beautiful.
amazing. Welcome, Catherine.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, gosh, it's great to be here. And I'm glad Emily's here too. I'm looking forward to her reading. This is called Angels in the ER, and it's good for this time of year. Witnessing a miracle can be nearly as amazing as experiencing one. Think about it. Haven't you been completely blown away when someone who's been given a short time to live rocks on in fairly good shape for 5 years or more? Maybe you know a person who's down in the dumps and out of the blue, a friend calls and says just the right thing to cheer them up. Or against all odds, someone's daughter wins a full-ride scholarship when her child's higher education wasn't in the budget. Back in 1993, I witnessed a series of miracles I'll never forget. A few weeks before Christmas, I had a return of an autoimmune disease called Guillain-Barré syndrome, GBS. 10 years prior, I'd spent a couple of weeks in the hospital before a diagnosis became clear. Briefly, in GBS, a person's immune system attacks the nervous system and eats away the myelin that's covering the nerves. Any place in the body where that happens becomes paralyzed and stays that way until the myelin returns, if it does. Many folks end up on respirators for long periods of time. Others may be confined to wheelchairs, and some die from it. I was fortunate and had a mild case that was treated at the time with steroids. Complete recovery, in other words, relearning to walk, the healing of double vision, and returning to my former energy level took nearly a year. All I can say is that the ordeal for me was a much-needed wake-up call. Thank goodness I listened. So when GBS returned, I knew what it was and that I just had more to learn from it. The good news was that less than a month before, I'd read about a new treatment for the illness that doctors seemed excited about. A friend drove me to my neurologist. Treatment article in hand, I greeted him with, "There's a treatment now that works." His smile was broad. Yep, I just used it on a 10-year-old boy and it worked like magic. Let's get you in the hospital. The new treatment was a 7-hour infusion for 5 consecutive days. Supervision was needed the first couple of days to make sure the body didn't reject the viscous IgG, which is immunoglobulin. As it was a Friday, I was to check into the ER for the outpatient treatment daily all weekend, then finish the final 2 days in a regular hospital room. The fact that a true treatment now existed was but the first of many miracles I personally experienced during this time. As I was unable to drive, I'd need transportation to and from the hospital daily. Enter miracle number 2. Working quickly, my friend Eleanor set up a Friends of KB network. That was my nickname in Kentucky where I'm from. The first day, one friend drove me to the hospital and checked me in. I settled into my ER bed, visualized a night that looked exactly like John Cleese leading Monty Python troops into my vein with the IgG to fight off the villains that might prevent it from working. Of course, that handsome hero did a fabulous job, and I slid into slumber to the Native American flute music of Carlos Nakai through my headphones for the rest of those 7 hours. Afterwards, a different friend drove me home, had supper ready, tucked me in for a good night's sleep, spent the night on my couch, fed me breakfast, and dropped me off the next day at the ER. Then a different friend would do the same the next day. By day 3, the treatment was working. I began to feel better, and after day 5 was released to recover at home. Yet, still my friends provided meals and spent nights, keeping my focus on laughter, a light heart, and pure gratitude, while I regained my strength. For 2 weeks. I later learned that one friend's wife had just left him. He said that staying at my house during something for someone else had been a comfort for him during a rough time. I repaid him later with an intro to wife number 2, who was a keeper. Needless to say, the experience brought all of us closer. But finally, back to this column's beginnings, i.e. witnessing miracles. On day 3 in the ER, I was privy to a lovely one. As you may know, privacy doesn't exist in that amazing place, with those remarkable docs and nurses scurrying about, rising to varied heart-stopping occasions from minute to minute. That job is certainly calling. Late that afternoon, an older woman in great distress was wheeled in to occupy the cubicle next to mine. While a doctor tried to check her over, she was weeping, moaning, and thrashing about. Finally, the harried physician said something to the effect that he couldn't work on her while she was in that state, asking the 2 attending nurses to please quiet her down and left to care for another patient. The nurses chatted among themselves, obviously trying everything in their bag of options, but nothing seemed to work until one began singing a Christmas carol. I believe it was Away in a Manger, softly at first, until the other nurse joined in and their voices lifted. Those wonderful ladies sang sweetly together. The first Noel, then it came upon a midnight clear. And by that time, the agitated woman became quiet, even peaceful, it would seem. My heart was filled with the Christmas spirit on the spot. What pure joy it is to witness a miracle. Sure made my day. The holidays are a season of miracles, you know.
Oh, nice.
You're a good reader.
Thank you.
It's very clear.
Yeah. Appreciate that.
It's wonderful. I'd like to welcome our next guest, Luke Frazier.
Thank you. I like being introduced by her rather than you.
How much kinder?
Everybody does.
This is the season of grace and gratitude, and I want to give a public thank you to Margaret Evans, my editor at the Low Country Weekly. She welcomed, and her late husband Jeff welcomed me to Buford and decided to, give me a chance to write a column for him, and she does some great editing, and I just really was thinking about her today, and I think I wanted to thank her. So she even let me write about something called Catch a Falling Leaf. I'm a big fan of group brainstorming and free association and curious mental twists. In a certain mood, I can even vibe workshop tests and games that interpret cloud shapes in the sky. Look, there's a duck-billed platypus. Similarly, I love a good paradox and wordplay in poetry forms, ranging from odes to sonnets to nasty limericks. What all these things have in common is the potential for original ideas, and that's what really sets my soul on fire. It's been said there are no new ideas anymore, just pieces of old ideas recombined in novel ways. I disagree. In fact, I am responsible for at least one original idea having to do with what creates luck and good fortune in our lives, and I hope it becomes as commonplace as the usual suspects. You know, things like your right palm itching, or a bird pooping on you signaling good money luck coming, rain on your wedding day for cleansing luck, finding a 4-leaf clover for general luck, seeing a rainbow for majestic luck, or eating 12 grapes at midnight on New Year's Eve for luck in the 12 months ahead, which I learned came from Spain. The fact is, someone had to first come up with an original idea of luck equaling a specific act, even if that act is just seen. Then the idea got talked about and sold forward to others and adopted by a larger group, culture, society, country, or beyond. A good luck saying gets accepted as a normal course of affairs in human life, regardless of how strongly you buy it or not. And that leads me right to my original idea about luck, one that I hope is adopted worldwide and taken for granted in generations to come. If you catch a falling leaf before it hits the ground, it will bring you luck. Of course, this becomes most pertinent every autumn. Growing up in the north, I was able to spend hours and hours in the colorful woods every fall, and I felt the power of the annual shedding of the oaks, maples, birches, sweet gum trees, and more. I've stood in the midst of swirling winds with leaves cascading down like water from a mighty stream. The idea of catching them as a fun pursuit is one that I'm sure many kids and kid-like adults have had. Possibly they've also experienced the realization that it can be tougher than it looks as those bits of colorful delights twist and turn to the ground. But I've never heard anyone say that catching one in the air produces good luck. I became convinced of this phenomenon years ago after blurting it out to my son one afternoon as we chased leaves. I told him with confidence, you know, if you catch a falling leaf before it hits the ground, it will bring you good luck. He was 7 and still bought into most of what Dad said. It was also around that time that I told him, as we waited TSA airport line, that if he had any holes in his socks, they weren't going to let him fly. Causing a minor panic. Today, he listens less, even as I think I have more pertinent wisdom to share than I used to. Anyway, the thing is, as soon as the words, if you catch a falling leaf before it hits the ground, it will bring you good luck, left my mouth, I knew that they were true. It was a white light moment of spiritual violation that had pierced all the self-doubt nonsense that usually kicks in when such moments occur. Instead of analyzing it away, I just kept repeating it to people over the years whenever I got the chance. This variety of certainty reminds me of a quote attributed to Native American writer and storyteller Simon Ortiz. Quote, "I do not know if these things happened, but I know that they are true." That's how I feel about the luck produced by catching leaves. It's a legend in my mind and a myth to live by, and it just so happens to be true. In our current state of our world, somewhere between confusion and chaos, we need all the luck we can get. The kind of luck that is multiplied by goodwill and a rallying cry for belief. It paves the way for grace, hope, and kindness. So here I present to you a new idea about how to create luck in your life. All it takes is getting outside, keeping your eyes peeled for falling leaves, and throwing your arms and heart wide open.
Next, I'd like to welcome up Justin Patton.
Hi, everyone. These are some of my goofy poems.
Yes.
All right. I haven't name for this one yet. I'm a server, and one of the things that annoys me to no end is bags for boxes. Like, you already have a box, why do you need a bag for that? Excuse me, would you like a bag for your box? Ah, yes. However else would I transport my baglet box? Here's a bag for the shoe box. I changed your new pair of Reeboks. Do me a favor, and into the trash bin with those Crocs. Here's a giant bag only a quart full of chips, but please don't mention my insides being riddled with microplastics. Wondering how much packaging I've actually ingested, decorated with glitter. Now my guts sparkle, it's quite majestic. Inside of this gift-wrapped box is a present for you in a vacuum-sealed bag. It's very expensive. I wanted you to notice so I can remove the price tag. This trash will likely end up in the ocean. However, I don't think about that because it's such a drag. And if I didn't have a bag for this box, my walks to get places would shortly lag. Ooh, this is a nice grocery bag. I'll put it with the rest of my collection under the sink. It'll come in handy in case I need to tote some sacks and bags or some assorted soft drinks. Blue hands, packed in boxes on crates, shrink wrapped in plastic, shipped from Coca-Cola Inc. The consumer shall consume endless consumption, and it's all a racket, I think. We've all been hoodwinked. All right. One of my, actually, I don't want to tell you that way you kind of figure it out. A store on the brink of extinction, a place that will only you none as well as fiction. Contents of cases have become obsolete, far from the days that were winding incomplete, no longer needed to supply entertainment for your family, for your 5 family nights. We don't need more action, laughs, loves, and frights. These aisles once seemed to be a portal to time, death by the hands of Netflix and Amazon Prime. Options and doom scrolling for your brain. Never mind. I guess I'll just watch this again. Alright, I got 2 more for you. Alright. I'm going to let this one speak for itself. Did you know there are 2 A's in the word caramel? When you pronounce it caramel, I find it quite deplorable. May I have some caramel with my espresso? Now there's a mispronunciation combo. It's quite the butchering. My ears are suffering. Did you know there are 2 A's in Carmel by the Sea? That's a place in California. Carmel is also a beautiful place, a beautiful city in Indiana. Caramel, such an elegant word, and my favorite part of dessert. So when you say it like that, I just can't help but insert myself in the blurt. My apologies, I don't mean to be so critical and satirical. Let's just enunciate and appreciate the beauty that is caramel, not caramel. This one's called Fermented. Before sobriety, it was always them, never me. Living in a realm of spiritual make-believe, a facade, a fantasy. How could I be so arrogant, yet so naive? Throttled by the bottle. For quite some time I was thought ill. Voluntarily restrained and swallowed, drink my pacifier to coddle. An illusion wrapped in illusion. Putting down the drink couldn't possibly clear up this confusion. Interrupting my consumption was quite the intrusion. An extrovert confined in need of a new prescription lens, a new perspective, some actual intelligence. There is a solution, but I was hung up on the who, what, where, why, and whens, instead of just trusting the process and newfound friends. I didn't quite understand the severity. It's hard to leave a life of austerity, leaving the comfort of familiarity. Yet with this new life I live, the skies have opened for an awakened and beautiful clarity.
Those were really beautiful. It's hard to make poetry funny, but that was great. Anyway, now to introduce my favorite Conroy brother, we've got Tim Conroy. Yes, sir.
That was quite the spell of polysyllables. I'm going to read 3 poems. 2 of them will not be funny. Greedy cats. They stare at you like they know your soul and discover unique shoes and use their lovely comfort of purrs and soft fur to spellbind you deeper while their trip us to land on our asses for another year of imbalances. On my brother's birthday, this is for my brother Tom. 1, I enter the dark cave of schizophrenia, of memory, of hallucinations, of auditory distortions, of a suicidal leap from a roof, a hard stop to a parked fate. 2, his onset was a labyrinth. 3, I share the poem he wrote and his question with you. I can't find the answer. 4, in perfect world, there are 4 tunnels of apartments, and we are in the tunnel of space, of the here and the now. When I grow up, I want to be someone to be loved. 5, what is the black liquid that fills the day? Not your cheery Christmas poem by then. This is a point you will not be good after Mary Oliver. After his body flew away, he read her good poem to comfort me. I do keep the words. I do listen for the wild flap of wings. I do stay not good. I do not stop my walk of grief for 100 years. I burn across the desert, and I do not kneel, and I do not heal. I do not forget the call of loss. Harsh.
Our next speaker is Joe Graham.
Grateful to be here. A little nervous, so I'm picturing you all in your underwear, but don't worry, you little bees. I have several books written and a lot of articles, and I'm new to this whole thing, seeking if any of you experienced people have any advice, I'd love to talk to you afterwards. So a lot of this you'll know, some of it I hope you won't, or I hope you are enlightened, like I was. Our story begins in the Low Country, where the river meets the past. Before we proceed, allow me to acquaint you with some of Mr. Conroy's novels. The more famous ones, such as The Prince Dies of the Great Santini, which were made into films. But there's a little film that has since faded from view for its dated portrayal of racial dynamics and our sensitivities. Mentioned perhaps in its title, The 100-Year Lost Civilization, Irony and Fall of Cancellation and Hope, a tribute to Pat Conroy, history, our story, the human experience, against cancellation's tide, lest we erase and that film inspired me to dive into Mr. Conroy's novels and understand his experience more. The foundation of this story begins with Pat Conroy's literary fame did, with The Water is Wide, which later became the film Conrad. There are many movies that captured this hallowed place's haunting beauty. Perhaps you've heard of Glory. Filmed in 1989, it tells the story of the 54th Massachusetts, the first Black Union regiment who encamped near here in 1863 and retreated at the castle, a local home converted into a makeshift hospital and barracks. Local voices echo the words too. Aside from Conroy, Buford inspired other authors of low country tales, like Bastards of Carolina and Sullivan's Island in the 1990s. Tales of resilient Southern women, like Miami's Wife. Coastal Quirks, drawing from upstate South Carolina grit, with his unflinching look at poverty and abuse in the rural South. In 1565, Spanish Admiral Pedro Menendez de Viz founded St. Augustine, the oldest continuously occupied European city in the United States. He skipped it as capital, sailing north in 1566 to Paris Island. There he found the ruins of French explorer Jean Roubaud's family St. Augustine by 3 years in Jamestown by 45. Menendez Haynes, surviving French, claimed the New World for Spain and built Santa Elena as La Florida's capital between 1566 and 1587. They built forts and churches amid malaria, yellow fever, pirate raids, and Native American attacks. In 1587, fearing Sir Francis Drake, the English privateer sanctioned by Queen Elizabeth I, who had buried St. Augustine earlier, the Spanish torched Santa Elena themselves. The land returned to the Native American Yamasee and Kasuga tribes for over a century. English settlers chartered Beaufort in 1711, importing enslaved West Africans for plantations. Indigo and built empires, but malaria, yellow fever, and other evidence buried some of them in shallow graves. Raised graveyards dot the town because of the area's high water table. In 1861, the Union fleet seized Port Royal Sound, the Civil War's biggest early naval clash. Local inhabitants fled in what is now known as the Great Skedaddle. Panic planters fled, abandoning silver and approximately 10,000 enslaved people. Beaufort, the first southern town occupied, became a Union sanctuary, spared from General Sherman's fires for use as hospitals and officers' quarters. Dysentery, typhoid, and smallpox ravaged the area. Then came the Port Royal experiment, 1862 to 1865. A quiet, courageous, active Beaufort is one of those good-hearted places in America. Northern teachers and missionaries, the Gideonites, arrived not with rifles, but with primers and wages. They paid abandoned people to grow cotton as free laborers, opened the Penn School on St. Helena Island, the first school for free people in the South, and watched in wonder as some of the same men and women pooled their dollars and brought the very plantations that had once owned them. This was a rehearsal for Reconstruction and living proof that freedom could work. Lincoln studied the reports from these islands before he signed the Emancipation Proclamation. Here, in Beaufort's gentle embrace, the nation first saw that black citizens could work, learn, and build with hunger that shaped every old lie about inferiority. When much of that land was cruelly taken back after the war, the pride remains. This town once sheltered the future. Gullah Geechee descendants still hold those barrier islands today, weaving African baskets, speaking Creole, cooking ochre stews, preserving West African rich. Their wisdom lives in the Brer Rabbit tales. The claims like Brer Fox, rooted in Anasi fables from Ghana and Liberia. The enslaved carried them orally. Joel Chandler Harris collected them in the 1880s, Uncle Remus stories, framing a wise storyteller, Remus, inspired by real black elders, sharing lessons with an aristocratic white boy. Disney's 1946's Song of the South adapted them, highlighting Brer Rabbit's misdirection as survival smarts. But the controversy arose as post-bellum nostalgia, leading to the cancellation of U.S. home video releases and only remnants to be found online. Disneyland and Walt Disney even built a ride that many enjoyed based on this movie called Splash Mountain. The irony. Canceling echoes of African ingenuity that empowered the oppressed and protagonist of the movie was wise Uncle Remus. The antagonist being the ignorant poor white boys who picked on their sister and animals for amusement. This modern purge mirrors the Nazi books burnings in 1933. The students torched un-German works to silence dissent and rewrite history. If we scrub such tales today, we court repetition of those very mistakes. Better to learn from them. Irony teaches resilience, not oblivion. The newly freedmen voted, electing Robert Smalls, Beaufort-born, stole the CSS planter in 1862 and was elected to Congress in 1875. The poll taxes, literacy tests, violence, and the 1895 South Carolina Constitution eventually disenfranchised them. Gull Islands like DeFusty, just off nearby Hilton Head Island, stayed cut off. Accessible only by boat to this day, and no cars until the mid-1950s, the lost Gullah freedmen relied on boats. kids hunted and fished, saw plains as iron birds, unaware of the world beyond. Enter Pat Conroy, a recent Citadel graduate in 1967. He defied his father and skipped the Marines to teach on Defusky in 1969, a civilization lost for 100 years. In a two-room school, he battled ignorance, brought globes, TVs, showed maps of America, taught children they were part of something bigger. Fired for unorthodoxy, Conroy plotted his revenge with a tale of the board's resistance to education. His subsequent books became crusades. The Lords of Discipline in 1980 exposed racism, earning a shunning by the institution Reconciliation in the 2000s. The Great Santini in 1976 skewered an abusive father. Estrangement followed between Pat and his father. The film turned Santini into a batch Conroy's father eventually embraced, leading to heartfelt father and son peace, inspiring his last works, The Death of Santini, a tale of reconciliation between father and son, and A Low Country Heart, reflections on writing life. Conroy loved the Gullah. His Defusky years appears to have ignited a lifelong advocacy, weaving resilience into every tale. Stand for truth, he showed. Justice blooms from pain. Like Conroy, I grew up under a father who did what he thought was right, harsh in his convictions, shaping me through the discipline that often felt like cruelty. Unlike Conroy, my mother abandoned us, her only crime wanting someone to love her and unintentionally scarring a child until the wound mostly healed a mere 30 years later. The older I grow, the more I study history and resonate with both parents, understanding the wounds that drove both of their choices. Though my mother has long since passed, the memories of her and humanity still got me. This story reached into my heart as Conroy's novels did his readers. It reminds me to never forget. Nu oubli, the ancient motto of the Clan Graham, my last name. Do not forget. In its Scottish heraldic roots, though spoken in French, it charges me to remember duty, ancestry, and past sacrifices. Here in the Low Country, amid layers of forgotten forts, freedmen's dreams, and resilient voices, that call feels eternal. Remember the pain, the courage, the truth, and carry it forward. I hope this tale ignites a spark of hope in a world where race and religion are of no consequence. And I humbly believe that the founding fathers of this great nation intended it. Whether it was intentional or otherwise, Providence guided them as it does us. Culture, in my humble opinion, is the only thing that matters. So the question is, do we wish to have a culture dictated us by others, or keep the culture we have? My vote is to adopt wisdom from all cultures and not cancel the great tales of the Gullah or anyone that brings value to our great nation's experiment.
Thank you. It's a wonderful, wonderful writing. I'd like to welcome Peggy Bartz next.
Okay.
Gotta follow that.
Okay, well, just like in all events, there's always musical interlude.
Yes, true.
Hannah, I got it. And then I'll tell you why. All right, so I'm really happy I have a podium, but normally I'm sitting behind a piano. And once upon a time, they made me stand out in front of the piano and sing. I'm not kidding, my knees went like this. I'm like, oh my gosh, give me the piano again. So, I've been playing the piano my whole life since I was 11. There we go. And I'm really comfortable. This is me. So I paint with notes. And now I started painting with words. This is my comfort zone. that? Okay, I'll leave that on just for the first one. I have 3 daughters. My middle daughter is a redhead, and she has a temper. She's also full of life. So I wrote this poem way back when she was about 5. And she has a redheaded temper. From the utmost beginning, her dance commenced inside the warm place. She wriggled and smiled and danced on tiny, tiny, teeny toes and danced out quickly, laughing, high-kicking into the world. I've told her that I look and look for the on-off button when she is so full of wiggles that she can't sit still. With one eye peeking out at sunlight, the song and the dance and the giggles pour out. Sometimes in the frustrated tears of her small world, her freckles get wet, and still she dances until the darkness has layered the evening. Snuggling under her blanket, she plans a kiss and insists a hug, then another, and then just one more. I hear her talk in her sleep and bump against the wall at 3 a.m., and I think, so much life. I pray that no one ever finds that button. I actually have a blog on Substack that I just don't have time to do, but this was my first post, and the name of it is Letters to My Jedis. That would be plural. So I actually did this on January the 1st of 2023. I'm from Michigan. I'm very grateful I'm not there. There's inches and inches of snow on the ground right now. I have had a construction yard full of dump trucks loaded with difficulties thrown, rumbled, tumbled, scripted, and tossed at me. Very messy, mixed up people doing really ignorantly ugly things, and while it has sucked, I've also learned more than I could ever imagine. Did I sign up for this? Was there a waiting line that said, roller coaster lives, stand here, before hopping the earth train? I do know this now. You will learn a ton if you stay open to learning and not focus so much on the pain. There's a nod there to David Goggins' book called Can't Hurt Me. And the reason this is called Letter to My Jedis is because there really are human beings walking around looking all very humanish, but they are deep undercover Jedi warriors. They do not like spotlight. They hide very well in plain sight. And they show up exactly when you need them, even if you think you don't need assistance or don't even know how to ask for any. They are different than angels because angels, from what I hear, are not solid form. They are wispy, translucent, incredibly transparent according to the legends and tales. And I don't ever want to see one. I made a deal. I don't want to see one. I'd probably faint or die, and I want to keep living this story, so please do not appear to me. Thank you. Whereas a Jedi shows up as a solid form with skin, bone, smile, and arms, a very visible life form. Gender doesn't matter. Wise is wise. Usually one doesn't know until after they've made your life different and better, always better, that they were a Jedi. Mrs. Schwallenberg was the first Jedi I recognized, even though I was only 7 or 8, and Star Wars was not me. I did not know about Jedis then, but I knew she was not ordinary. She was my mom's widowed friend from college. She was really loud, with a booming, throaty, raspy, deep voice that resonated to every room in our small home. She was instinctively funny to her core. One-liners were her dish of the day. My mother did not like people coming over to our house, but she, for some reason, was always welcome. She called up my mom on her child raising all the time, right in front of all of us. My mom was well beyond strict. Okay, so that's not the right word. How about terrified of all things? I know that's 4 words, but for her it was all one word and one sadly mistaken attitude. She was a combination of the Pope, a Gestapo, a drill instructor, and the grim reaper of the emotions of her 7 children. They were basically caged little people who were in her sight 24/7. There was never a time there was not a playpen set up in the house or she didn't know where we were. That is fear-based parenting, but none of us 7 kids knew this was not normal. You don't know what you don't know. We used to save my dad's William Penn cigar boxes and keep treasures in them. We'd cover them with contact paper and add mementos, and yes, I still have them. One day, Mrs. Schwallenberg gave me a newspaper clipping from Peter Max. It said, "To thine own self be true." I had no idea what that meant, and I'm still to this day working that out. She must have known in her incredibly out-loud wisdom that I would need to hear this all through my life, and better yet, learn how to live it. I'm now probably close to her age, and she is still vivid presence and vivid presently in my mind. She was a personal kind of Jedi presence. What I intuitively know now is this. Each human being has been given guides throughout life. They all look very human, but they are tailored just for your life experience. Pay attention because they come in fascinating packages. They arrive in unexpected ways, by unexpected means. Sometimes they're really cute. And through other people who fade away long after the Jedi still remains in your life. I have a theory about fairy tales. You can always find people in modern day life that resemble those mythical personas. We all know wicked warlocks and princesses, and butchers and bakers and candlestick makers. By the way, modern candlestick makers are probably people who hold the light for others. The butchers are the kind who try to slaughter a person's identity. You get the idea. I met a physicist once at a house concert. There were less than 20 people there, as one of my friends was presenting an intimate concert of his own music. This gentleman, as he asked my name and we chatted, was in his 80s. He explained during the intermission that he happened to be the person who found the stabilizing element for the magnet that is found in every cell phone in the world. Just for you, I went and looked it up. The main element in all of your cell phones is called neodymium, which is part of an alloy that includes iron and boron. It acts as a stabilizer. He's the one who figured out what that was to make the magnet work. Anyway, they couldn't get it to work till this was discovered. I knew immediately that he had probably changed history because he was a hidden Jedi physicist who imagined and placed into reality this process that we don't even think about that powers these devices we all cannot do without. We call that a wizard in storybooks, and yet here he was, a human being, just telling me a story. He was humble and he was kind. Pay attention this year and every day to the Jedis hiding right in front of your nose. Thank you.
Well, good. Yeah, I'm good. You took my paper. You took my paper.
Oh, I'm so sorry you did. I took my.
Guys, I don't have everyone's names memorized.
Apparently.
All right, I'd like to welcome Lillian Ladd up next.
I gotta say, I think my writing is probably the odd one in the bunch, because from like memoirs and stuff, mine's more of a fantasy about a character from the Marvel universe named James Bucky Barnes, and he was like once a brave soldier from Brooklyn, and he was later twisted into the infamous Winter Soldier by Hydra, which is like a illegal Russian organization in the Marvel universe. And it's been decades trapped between the person he was and the weapon they forced him to become. Now standing in aftermath of his own memories, which is where my essay about this character takes place, you can finally see that reclaiming his identity and understanding as the man that he had made him to be. So I'm gonna start by reading my own part, if I can just find it. Okay, this is kind of in the middle of him, he's like confessing to his his self that he was trying to overcome. I start still trying to grasp my thoughts together. I could simply just be James Bucky Barnes for the rest of my life and try to forget who I was, but my mind doesn't let me do anything of the sort. It has to stay in the past. It lights up when the darkness falls, or rather smothers any light from reaching me. I can't sleep, and I haven't for days, but I think I've started to dream of my dreams. They always start out with my eyes seeing a world I haven't even imagined yet, which is where I see blood in giant pools and heavy rain, and the tears streaming down the many faces of people I only met once, when I was the last person they ever met. But in those cloudy skies, I think I see light. If I can only just reach high enough, if I can extend my fingers, maybe I can touch it. All will be healed, but I can't take flight. My arm is no wing, it's a weight, and I fall. I'm numbing, and I fall. I'm nothing, and I fall. I'm an outcast, and I fall. But I still won't sleep, and that only tells me one thing. I turn my head to meet the winter soldier's eyes. I do something I thought I'd never be able to do. I forgive you. A shocked look, only for a glimpse from him. I blink through the blur of tears, and he's gone. I look around, completely in darkness again. But then the darkness all around me brightens and turns to white, too bright, and I pull my arm up to mask my eyes. Am I forgiven too? I feel around, please don't be dead, wherever I am, and slowly open my eyes. They're blurry and they sting, and I move my hands to my face to rub them, but I notice the smoke in the air and the electrical crackling around me. Startled, I quickly stand up. I have to run to a cement column to keep from falling over. Ugh, my head. I'm really lightheaded, and that had to have taken a lot out of me. Out of habit, I write my runny nose on my sleeve, pulling it away from my face and noticing the bright red. It's clearly bleeding. I begin to let off the column, regaining my balance, and turn my head back and forth for a search of a mirror, in which I find a large piece of shattered glass I see on the ground. That will probably do. I pick it up very carefully and look at my reflection. My nose and the corners of my mouth are bleeding, and I could probably use a shower, but other than that, I'm all right. I toss the glass aside, carefully listening to the satisfying shh. Then I tilt my head up, continue to look around. I walk back to the machine and examine it. It clearly burnt itself out. Small flames lick the electrical wires running from behind the interface. The machine may be broken and unfixable, I tell myself, but I noticed how my mind isn't anymore, how I'm able to gather my thoughts together. All my memories are there with no concerning gaps, the full stories. I sit on the ground, simply going through them, how many happy times I had with little Steve. I smile at the thoughts, and then it hits me. I think I might finally be a normal person. The guilt and the secrets seem to have disappeared, but I still remember them. They don't hurt anymore. I tug my dog tags out from under my shirt and stare at them, looking for a somewhat empty spot. I pull a knife from my pocket and scratch "forgiven" on it. I slide the knife back in the sheath. I stare at it and smile. I'm forgiven. About time I accept that. I follow the snowflake trail on the floor of the bunker to find my way back to the entrance, not bothering to look around. I still feel a smile stretched across my rough face. I probably look really stupid, but why should I care? I'm in the middle of Siberia. I quickly climb up the metal ladder and pull myself out, picking the broken door up and just placing it on top of the entrance. Then I just pounce into no one's top. No one will find it now, I laugh to myself. Then I look up, admiring the colorless but beautiful scenery of snow and black mountains, and then the blank gray sky. And this is where I start on my way back. My cheeks are beginning to sting from the cold, and I'm still smiling. But I did come to a conclusion, and that hasn't happened in over 90 years for me. I think I'm actually going to stay happy forever. I realize that my past just so happens not to be a cage, but a mirror, and today I finally lived.
All right.
That was really wonderful writing. Thank you so much for sharing. Next, I will be calling up to the stage myself. So I'm going to read 2 poems for y'all today. This first poem is called Firebush Summer, and I wrote it actually in Professor Rosko's class, and it is about my longing for Beaufort summer. This was written right around the end of March, and I was just like, please get me out of class, please get me out of class, please put me in the water. And here in the middle of winter, I once again just begging for it to be summer in Beaufort again. Firebush Summer. Reach for nearby noses, roses unfurl, sun beats, earthy and sweet, like root beer left to swelter in the heat. Interrupted by piss-soaked chlorine pools, children unashamed, adults too. Rapidly cooling catches of wet bikinis are exposed to gentle breezes, their secrets known only to the furry lives they press against. Stress from the lack of stress, buzzed straight through a widowed window that snaps and snarls, refusing to kiss the enamored sill. Dripping when wet, when dry, anxiously awaiting or watching for heavy lumps in the too blue sky. A null skitter and snap, green and brown and black, verdant. Clip non-existent teeth onto soft flesh. Hang tight, hang loose, don't let go. Bite hard, bite soft. Don't taste, don't forget. Remember the squirrel still flicks firebush in the summer, without acorns to bury or retrieve. Sieved and sifted moments, stolen of idle pleasure. Clamp down forever, unashamed, soaked to the bone. Root beer summer sips. And I have one more. This one. This one is about a ladybug that got stuck in my skirts. Crooked buttons, awkwardly cinched, halfway down your clenched thighs. Fabric, ditzy patterned in paisley blue. Clothed buttons caught between spread knees. Trapped inside, sunlight misses the feel of your skin. And warming wind-chilled strands that trickle between the goosebumps it can reach. I continue up my path, but your winter pink fingers stop me when you squeal in delight, and back outside it is cold, but it is so bright. All right, next I will be welcoming up our featured author, Emily Rosko. She is a poet and professor of English at the College of Charleston, where I go to school. She is the author of 3 poetry collections, Weather Inventions, Prop Rockery, winner of the 2011 Akron Poetry Prize, and Raw Goods Inventory, winner of the 2005 Iowa Poetry Prize. She is also the editor of A Broken Thing, Poets on the Line, and she serves as poetry editor for Swamp Pink. She is a past recipient of the Stegner and Ruth Lilly Fellowships, and her poetry has appeared in the Bennington Review, Epoch, Laurel Review, New American Writing, Seneca Review, South Carolina Review, Third Coast, and everywhere else. So please join me in welcoming Emily Rosko.
All right.
I'm just going to move this because I get too fidgety up here. I'm not going to take your papers away from
Oh, I don't need them anymore.
Toss them aside. Gosh, you guys, thank you so much. I was sitting here enjoying and forgot that I had to come up here and do the work too and read, so I am just in awe of the community and the kind of literary legacy, right, that you have here in this center. I mean, you know it's unique, right? You don't need me to tell you that, but I come here and I feel that energy and I feel that specialness, and it makes me really envious, right, that we don't have something like this in every city across the U.S. or even just in Charleston. I think something Charleston like this. But I'm so thankful you all are here and have this space and have this togetherness. Thank you to Jonathan for inviting me here. It's my first time in Beaufort. I lived in Charleston for 15 years, and I'm ashamed of it. I'm so grateful to be here. I'm having such a good time so far. Thank you, Millie, for the introduction. Very kind introduction. So I thought I'd read a little from all of my books, take a little tour, starting with new poems from my 4th poetry book, Thereafter, which will be published by the University of Akron Press in April of 2027. Many of these have not been read to an audience yet, so I'm grateful to kind of have the chance to test them out. The poems in Thereafter, just kind of on the most macro level, are centered on complicated relationships and entanglements between people. So the first poem that I'll read is a thesis for the collection. It's called, my head down, The You-Me Problem. All day, I've been trapped in the room of you, thinking of you, all-encompassing, palatial, impractical you. You as the seasonal winds shifting seaward. You, the invasive vines binding body to pole. I have never been so lost in you. You exhale oceanic breaths, and my bones soften. All day, the you of you entraps me. The sun's awful gold streams through the glass case of me, a window painted shut. My angles unangling with the off-square of you. The birds call migrations of me away from you. How can it be there's no scale to the you of me? What interism is this? You absolute there, me the beside. This place was once unmined. Let's see. You can save this fingers for later. This is called Lost Child. You liked to pretend you were lost. In the backyard woods, the pine would open its spiraled limbs. You'd climb and sit on the thinnest possible branch you dared, tracing the bark's scaly ridges, hands sticky with resin. Near the brook, you'd disappear behind the weeping willow's curtain, become a figurine inside a cloche. A nest of baby rabbits under the sedge and a black snake surfacing. A blue jay splitting the canopy with its alarm. Thief, thief, thief. Lilac coating the air. Spring green, tender everything. No one calls for you. You arrange your face into your best faraway look. You try to map the longest way home. Along the brick sidewalk, the daffodils' heads only see the ground. I'm realizing I have my water, so I'm gonna grab it, right? I'm like, can't survive without my water here. Doing okay? Am I loud enough? Am I too loud? Okay. Sometimes I get over loud. So. This is called Long Time, and it has an epigraph from a poet, Alice Fulton, who was my teacher at Cornell. It comes from a poem of hers called What I Like, and her little lines go, "Friend, I can't forget how even the word contains an end." On the phone again with you, nearing an hour in, and you finally ask a question of me, one so large and general that I'm dumbstruck, exhausted as I am from leaning my shoulder and ear into the telephone's cradle, sore from being hooked in place, kept dangling at your every word as you thoroughly got the story of each detail, catalog each bone, squeeze every minuscule gooey drop from your melodramas and happenings. I floated off downstream, numbed by the icy waters, a jolt here and there as I bump into boulders with a polite uh-huh to prove to you that I was still here, flesh, blood, marrow, my own pain I had no one to tell. How could you not know your overflow wore me down? When did I grow more reserved and you all outpoured? I see now I allowed you to make me the lifeguard you hoisted all your weight on. Catching up turned into the dread of being caught on the line. I'm sure I was kept as detached, snooty, indifferent, because it seemed the scales were tipping differently for us. One life settling into place, the other suspended. Didn't you know I nearly drowned from everything it took to get here? Once grounded, you receded. The in-between distance took on its own volume until it became impossible to interrupt. Years later, in a flush of giddiness, I sent news of my firstborn, thinking you would respond. When you didn't, I was okay. When soon after you gushed online about some other person's new baby, I was not prepared for the sting. I have not yet learned how to empty the self of the self. Deep breath held in. Out of the blue, years forward, you write to tell me of your mom's terminal diagnosis. I've sat with you in the recovery room of a hospital in Iowa long ago. I've gone over and overboard ruminating on spillage and buoyancy. There are no protocols for this kind of ending. I give in, welcome the nothing to hold on to in the middle of this dark, unfinished ocean.
Wow, that is really,
It's funny, like, you know, heartbreak is such a huge part of poetry, but I actually think the things that pain us the most when we lose friends, right? Not necessarily the bad lover, right? We can get rid of them eventually and move on, but friends?
yeah.
Yes. Okay. Maybe for something slightly more funny-ish. Kind of like in the manner of complaint, as we had earlier with the service poems and the bag and box and all that. It's called Complaint to Gas-Powered Leaf Blowers. Thank you.
Yes.
You all feel the same. Oh my gosh. Whew. I don't think there's any swear words in this one, though, unfortunately. Blasted. May the fuel to air ratio choke you. May you suffer a clog. A human being is one mouth, one nose, two sensitive ears and eyes, and you go around pretending your hose is a kisser, unpeeling the wind each Monday in the neighbor's weedy lawn. You whine at the tree grime drying to soot after the last big rain. Your holler is a brain drill, emptying me out of all common decency, the words you never hear me call you. Birdsong, pulse beats, etc. drown within you. How we must endure your dutiful cleaning. The earth is very dirty, so dirty, and your CO2 emissions can swallow the 1,000 miles of a Toyota Camry. You specialize in a fine particulate matter, smogging your carrier. You harden lungs with benzene, dizzy the brain with crossed wires. How can you justify your existence? Do we not have arms and hands and the pious broom that some say the Shakers perfected by flattening? Do we not wheeze enough already from increased pollen counts our warming planet makes? If a tree could grow dollars, if people could be fed by the fruits of their labor, if we did not acquiesce to the maintenance of the perimeter, if the grass did not require the anti-mosquito ant ground bee termite spray and the pre-emergent and the weekly low cut in order for us to lay our one tender body down in the sun's high beams. Leave the debris to its carbon meltdown, you wannabe jetpack. Ultimately regulated to hell's inner circle to serve as the backup while the bones and demons run up the scale off key.
I
love that we all agree that that's the worst, and yet they're, it's just like, if only we ruled the world as writers. Sestina for Nightfall. I make my students write sestinas, and so often when they're doing that work in the classroom, I am up there writing as well. So actually, I wrote this poem, started this poem in the classroom, which was like such a lovely gift. Sestina for Nightfall. Mid-argument again, I go back to the prior evening's replay of us landlocked, green-sword, fraying yet attached to seeking a new form of wisdom, for Minerva's owl to rip open meaning into our lives, for words to be spoken and matter. All the hard syllables colliding inside us, surging out like a meteor stream that unseams the sky in cascades, bluish streams fizzling before our eyes. The cracked moon plays court high in the arc of a night. Some proto-planet collides with another, and only the steadfast astronomer with an eye attached to a telescope's lens calls out to God in prismatic words of awe. Solitary watcher, come closer. Field scanning owl. My tongue can do nothing marvelous or owl-like except screech in rounds and wind streams as it rehashes yesterday's debate. What words could summarize how we make one another downplay the failure of our hours? Is meaning unattached to sound? A script unleashed as molecules collide to make all hurts spark. A course set for collision. We bear down in our territories, focused deep in owl vision, where any glint of movement attaches talon to flesh. One lives to die midstream in a sentence. Orator, my love, one hand plays, the other hand fool, foolish nature of words that cut to heal. Skin sting, breath soaked, and afterwards numbing us both. In the best poems, when you and I collide, there are no takebacks, no retorts, only minds on replay, cataloging how our animal loneliness guts us, unable to allow the other room. We sulk in this state downstream of each other, weighted and sinking in our attachments. You with your logic of compartments detaching. Me with my faulty memory, mouth a sieve of words, filtering the pulp of stars and feathers through bloodstream. When the moment passes, we will have aged. The collusive truth of our clocked cells turns us gray. We can howl all we want, but each time we're left middled and outplayed. Do you feel us unattaching more with each collision? My bone-thin words are dust. With dusk comes the owl on an upstream wind to sing to sleep our end play. We just, one more from these newer poems, and then I'll move on. This is called The Drift. Last time you were here, I let slip I want no other happiness. Across your cheek rose a flush, your head lowered under the midday sun that turns the palms the patina of an overexposed photograph, and the date tree's leaves a celadon glaze to take in, I thought, my words. Right then, some tough guy type with a souped-up muscle car muffler blasted by, and I said, what an idiot, and forgot right then to ask you why the sudden blush. Come to think of it, why the downturned corners of your mouth, as I recall now what was and wasn't answered that afternoon we walked through my neighborhood of fixer-uppers and overpriced bungalows recently flipped. Dandelions blazed and fuzzed in the overgrown lawns, and I plucked one, a childlike impulse since lost, and brought it without guile to my lips to make one final foolish wish. So, switching over here, Weather Inventions is this book here I'm going to read from. It's kind of my strange, third child. I know there's, this birth order stuff, right? The third child is supposed to, be problematic. I don't know, maybe you guys can argue about that later. But I always kind of feel that way about Weather Inventions a little bit. But it's largely because when I write books, I like to try on new flavors with each book. I always try to do something different, and I really kind of pushed myself to do what I felt was very different for me in this book. It's rooted in a sort of eco-poetics tradition, and it's rooted in a lot of research. I did a lot of research for this book, right? Who thought that's what poets can do for their poetry, but they can. And I pulled a lot from natural history, the history of meteorology, spanning from the rise of the new science in the 17th century, up through the Romantic period, up through the 20th century, and even up to our current moment of global crisis and climate change. There's all kinds of creative fodder for this book, superstitions and folklore, the sort of evolutionary inventions that organisms have developed in response to their environment. There's subjects like various technological inventions that were used for science and for war, different things that kind of harness the weather. On a craft level, this book kind of is trying to be what I call unpeopled. By this I mean, I tried my best not to use a subject pronoun I. They're not necessarily rooted in me here. They're meant to be a little bit more unpeopled. I can't think of a better way to describe it. But it's an attempt to sort of create this kind of distance when talking about the kind of scientific inventions and the natural phenomenon. My goal overall, though, too, was to try to take the stance of wonder. Right? I wanted these poems to sort of look at the world and marvel at how extraordinary it is. So I'll start with Gossamer. And you've seen Gossamer before, right? I hope, right? The beautiful cobwebs with dew in the morning. And when you really see it, it's quite gorgeous. I mentioned a poet in this poem, and it is Geoffrey Chaucer. He's the one who said this thing. The first line is going to talk about Gossamer. They didn't know what Gossamer was, right? They didn't know what it was for a good long time. People had no clue. An unsolved riddle, a medieval poet said. This wake of moon disturbed on the water, veil of angels fallen on Mary at the Assumption. Mornings, the rose vines are threaded over, the meadow turned to doily work, gauze and dew. paints the tiniest of aeronauts, spinnerets, sending up thread to air until it catches enough to lift the spiderlings. Undulations of light, red to silver, points of starburst gleaming with newness. This body of ascendant hundreds will rise and fall the currents, wayward-winded, dividing the day to segments and whims. All chances numbered, and such unreal possibility the leaves uncount, sown tree to tree, each line of pristine silk, the marvel of we wake to see. This next poem is called Reverdie, which is French. It's for regreening, so it's sort of a spring song. Call back spring and the migrations of birds. Winter has sheared down the birches to kindling and ash, but from the gray, the new green budding. Call back the spring if spring is still a season. Zephyr winds to calm the northerlies, the ground defrosting and opening to dew. Spiders spin their filthy, lacy strings. Spring unrolls a muddy field, the fecundity of clay, golden pollen sensualizing the air. Shower bursts and thickened xylems, the up-thrusted oozing nectar sweetening the ongoing infidelities of the bees. We'll lie in the meadow, press flesh to flesh against the damp, warming dirt, next to the earthworm deconstructing all remains. The grass unstitches to seed, sky a misted gauze that makes no promise for what's planted or buried. This next poem is called Weathervane, right? Which was an invention, right? Someone had to invent that. We kind of take it for granted. Legend has it that in the 9th century, there was Pope Nicholas. He sent out a decree that all the churches across Christendom should bear the cock as a reminder of how Peter denied Christ. So that is why we often have the rooster. Weathervane. A reminder for denial, turning away from the sun, witness to the horizon's crimson-streaked strife and blustery gales. Every steeple topped by the cockerel, the one eye to the wind, whether fair or foul, feathered tail, a warrior's flag, signaling the news from on high, whether favor or fury. Divine sentence scripted of conditionals. Noble fowl, gilded rooster, there is no morning song to issue. You divide the sky to function and faith with compass points defaced. You must tolerate the turbulence of what will pass by. I think I'm just gonna do one more from here. I'm gonna find the page 22. So I've been talking a lot about more nature-y things and more historical things, but this one is called Drone. And I think, at the time of writing this poem, which was quite a while ago, drones were still like kind of new. Like we didn't quite have them. They were Christmas gifts, right? That people were giving each other. They weren't used for your real estate photos and all that kind of stuff, right? They were still just like a new thing. And of course, all the talk of using them, of course, for battle, right? For war, for sort of not so great causes. So this is just called Drum. The images are precise and anonymous. Bodies and objects are enlarged by their shadows. One shadow shows running. You cannot tell age or expression so well, but there is no doubt when there is a crowd, such as the numbers bent head to ground in prayer. The symmetry of the suburbs is striking, so too the cars parked within their white lines, a pattern of herringbone. Sun-blanked windshields, the ongoing asphalt. The agriculture is immense, especially the exposed cattle pens stocked with most facing the same direction. The lands with nothing, the nothing land. The clearest days mean the most harm. Okay, so that's a little taste of weather inventions. And I really just think I'm going to have maybe two from Prop Rocker, my favorite child, I think, right from second one. Which is a book that it does a lot of things at once, but maybe on a whole, just to say it's deeply invested in the idea of persona and the dramatic. So there's all kinds of voicings that happen in a kind of Shakespearean kind of language, and a lot of the poems have titles that are taken from a Shakespeare play. And so the speaker of that poem is like pseudo that character, but also kind of not, right? So it's a little bit of an in between. This poem, I'll just read to you from here. This title comes from Titus Andronicus. In thy dumb action will I be as perfect. It all became weight, tolerate the conditions, the two, and the much. It was a drippy mix of sensations, a blood for beans mentality from the start. We were bustled up with pomp, the flashing of rhetoric, the proper rites carried out to a T. I was bottom feeder, I was bunk. I delivered the sure-footed their forecasts, doctor to their sure-footed forecasting needs. A win-win for the disingenuous, a sword for the mal at ease. What matter that the high heavens spoke law, that reason relied on the flimsiness of appeal? We applauded it, glassy-eyed with doting. In turn, we were shaven, truncated, unadorned. I went, bad shot to mouth, elemental as salt. I was a long line of example, not first to be put to show. Stone set time of the tilling fields, row of sharps and picks, the insweep, the overfill, that which plucks the fowls that stirred the dust. Sing, shifty earth, the dirt reminds me of the evil I am. Okay, so this is called Let Me Be Thought Too Busy in My Fears, which is the line that Iago says in Othello. So I am kind of seeing a lot of Iago here in this kind of voicing. I always love the villains, right? They like the best poetry in these plays, right? You know, so sorry, I'm kind of focusing on these like more unsavory characters here. Let me be thought too busy in my fears. So it fell out like this. Went to the edge of daybreak, a golden gulf wrapped with fog. There the earth grew older, there the birds tweaked their little riches from the brambly crisscross of hawthorn. It was a jaspered moment, a mutt formation, an incremental hue upon hue. I fit myself inward, a spleen-racked mind to be better, a knack for staging the upsets, the empire. I turned my innocent side out, knavery's plain face, and fessed up to my brothers. They were sap-filled to the heart, because love's its own embargo, a charted unknown, self-painted in self-same colors. Because fear-flung, they squander. I made a mock hobby of the elect. I played to their heel and planted the itch. They sat pups to my lips, whelped by their rule of seize and plunder. Then night turned out day, and in short, there was an earth crash, a backlash, and now I'm chained as a liar, a flinty street with no fire. All right, thank you again for coming out tonight. I know there's like a million other things you could have done on your Thursday. I just got one more for you. And then, if you want to chat after, I'm totally up for that. This is from my first book. It's the Weave, back when I was a baby poet. It's called Even Before Your Elbow Knocked Over the Glass. I have a spouse who breaks things all the time. It's very angry. So I'm always imagining what's going to break next. Okay. First, there were the broken pieces. You said, "Don't you think I know what I'm doing?" To which I replied, "Don't you feel most alone when we're in this together?" Under the eave, wasps are constructing a nest. Great paper out of spit. So much of the body is in their work. See how the legs move, bending and praying. You said, "Don't you think I know when you're trying to change the subject?" I could make a building out of my despair. We could acquire a nice piece of land and sit on it. There are 1,000 blades of grass, each one waiting to be claimed. As I always say, you said, if you commit one sin, then you commit them all. To which I said, how many absolutes do we have proof of? The sky has never looked bluer. What is the significance of that? It means I might walk out on you yet. What, you asked? Nothing, I said. I said nothing. What is there to say anyway, except in the sunlight, I could see the glass fall even before your elbow knocked it over. This is always how it happens. Certain ideas are never fully formed. This is some mess, you said. To which I said, there are lives that go on this way. Then we went down on our knees, and in that manner we began.
You do
I
have to
don't remember
close
being
out.
told this part earlier.
No, we covered this.
I don't remember that. All right. I want to thank everyone for coming here today. Everyone had such amazing stories to share, and I'd love to hear y'all share more stories. So, yeah, I got a knock-knock joke for y'all.
Okay.
Knock-knock.
Who's there?
Yeah.
Yahoo!
All right. Thank you.